The abandoned lighthouse stood against the cliff like a broken bone piercing gray skin. Rain hammered the coastal highway as Mara's motorcycle sputtered to a stop, steam rising from the engine in ghostly wisps. She pushed her helmet back, revealing eyes the color of winter storms, and a scar that traced her left temple like a crescent moon. The gas station's neon sign flickered open in sickly pink letters. Inside, fluorescent lights buzzed over rows of stale coffee and processed food. Behind the counter stood a man who looked like he'd been carved from the same stone as the cliffs. Outside, dark hair fell across his face, hiding eyes that held too many secrets. "Rough night," he said, his voice carrying the weight of someone who understood storms. Mara stripped off her leather gloves, revealing hands marked with old burns. "Just passing through." Everyone's just passing through. His fingers drummed against the counter. She noticed the wedding ring he still wore despite the pale line where another had been removed. "Where you headed, away?" He studied her face, taking in the exhaustion that lived beneath her defiance. "Coffee's fresh. Made it an hour ago when the power came back." Steam rose from the cup he offered, carrying the scent of something stronger than caffeine. Their fingers brushed as she took it, and for a moment neither pulled away. Mara. Outside, lightning split the sky like a photographer's flash, illuminating the truth they both carried. She was running from something. He was waiting for something to run from. "There's a motel up the road," Kai said, his voice careful. "Owner's my uncle. He'll give you a fair rate." Mara's laugh held no humor. "You trying to get rid of me?" "Trying. To keep you alive?" His eyes met hers. "Roads wash out in storms like this. Lost 3 people last winter who thought they could make it through." The lights flickered again, longer this time. In the darkness that followed, Mara saw something in his face that made her chest tight. Recognition. He knew what it looked like when someone was drowning on dry land. "Oh, what makes you think I want to be saved?" Kai reached under the counter and pulled out a bottle of whiskey, pouring a shot into her coffee without asking. "Because you stopped here instead of driving?" "Straight into the ocean." The words hit like a physical blow. Mara's hand tightened around the cup, and for a moment the mask slipped. Kai saw the girl she'd been before the world taught her to carry knives in her smile. "You don't know anything about me? I know you've been driving for 3 days straight. I know your bike's running on fumes and prayers. I know that whatever you're running from, it found you anyway." He leaned forward, close enough that she could see the gold flecks in his dark eyes. Because it always does. The storm outside seemed to hold its breath. Mara felt something crack inside her chest, a sound like ice breaking on a frozen lake. "Why do you care?" Kai's hand moved to the scar on his neck, a thin white line that disappeared beneath his collar. "Because I've been where you are, and I know what happens next if you keep running." Thunder rolled across the sky like God's own bowling ball. The lights went out completely, plunging them into darkness so thick it had weight. In that blackness, Mara heard Kai move around the counter, felt him step closer until his breath was warm against her cheek. "Let me help you." When the emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in hellish red, Mara saw something that made her blood freeze. On the wall behind the counter, barely visible in the dim light, hung a photograph of a woman who looked exactly like her. The photograph. "Who is she?" Mara's voice cut through the red-tinged darkness like a blade through silk. Kai followed her gaze to the photograph, and his face went white as bone. The emergency lighting cast shadows that turned his features sharp and dangerous. Her name was Alina. The past tense landed between them like a body hitting water. Mara stepped closer to the wall, studying the face that could have been her twin. Same storm-gray eyes, same defiant tilt to the chin, even the same scar tracing the left temple. As Kai's hand moved to his wedding ring, twisting it like a prayer. "Wheel. She died 2 years ago. Right here, actually." The coffee cup slipped from Mara's fingers, shattering on the linoleum floor. Brown liquid spread like blood in the red light. "How?" "Car accident. Storm, just like this one." His voice was steady, but Mara caught the tremor underneath. She was running too. From me, the air in the small store felt thick enough to drown in. Mara's pulse hammered in her throat as pieces of a terrible puzzle began fitting together. "That's why you helped me." 'Cause I look like her. No. Kai stepped closer, and she could smell the scent of rain and regret on his skin. I helped. You, because I failed her. Outside, the storm screamed against the windows like something trying to get in. Or maybe something trying to get out. Mara's hand moved instinctively to the knife she kept strapped to her thigh. What did you do to her? The question hung in the air like smoke. Kai's eyes went dark, pupils swallowing the gold until they looked like two black holes. I loved her too much, held on too tight. His voice was barely above a whisper. She said I was suffocating her, that she couldn't breathe with me watching her every move. But I'd lost so much already, I couldn't lose her too. Mara backed toward the door, her hand closing around the knife handle. So you followed her? I followed her. The admission fell from his lips like a confession in a confessional booth. That night, when she finally left, I got in my truck and went after her. The roads were slick. Visibility was zero. Just wanted to bring her home. Lightning illuminated the parking lot through the windows, turning everything into a black and white photograph of desperation. Mara's motorcycle sat like a sleeping predator next to an old pickup truck she hadn't noticed before. You caused the accident. Kai's laugh was broken glass and bitter medicine. She saw my headlights in her rearview mirror, started driving faster. Taking turns too sharp, I was gaining on her when she hit the curve by Miller's Point. Mara's blood turned to ice water. Miller's Point was where her own story had started, where her sister had died 3 years ago in an accident that was never quite explained, where she'd been running from ever since. The curve by the old oak tree. Kai's head snapped up, his eyes searching her face like a man looking for salvation in scripture. You know it? My sister died there. The words came out flat, empty, of emotion because she'd bled all the feeling from them years ago. Sarah Chen. 3 years ago this month. The color drained from Kai's face like water from a broken vessel. He staggered backward until his spine hit the wall. The photograph of Elena watching over him like a guardian angel or an avenging ghost. That's impossible. Why? Mara's voice was deadly quiet, 'cause you were the only one stalking women. On that road, because you were the only one whose obsession killed someone they claimed to love. Kai shook his head, but Mara could see the truth taking root in his eyes like poison ivy. Sarah Chen, dark hair, about 5'6", drove a blue Honda. How do you know that? Because I was there. His voice broke on the last word. I was chasing Elena, and your sister was coming from the other direction. When Elena's car went off the road, she overcorrected and hit Sarah head-on. The world tilted sideways. Mara felt like she was falling through space and time, through layers of lies and coincidence until she landed somewhere that felt like destiny or damnation. You killed my sister. Kai reached toward her, his hand shaking like a leaf in a hurricane. Mara, I never meant for anyone else to get hurt. I swear to you, if I could trade places with both of them, I would. The knife was in her hand now, though she didn't remember drawing it. The blade caught the red emergency light and threw it back like fire. Killed my sister, and now you want to save me. What kind of sick game are you playing? It's not a game. Tears cut tracks down, his cheeks making him look younger and more broken. When I saw you tonight looking so much like Elena, I thought maybe the universe was giving me a chance to make things right. By doing what? Killing me too? By saving you? He took a step closer, ignoring the knife between them. Thigh-making. Sure, what happened to them never happens to anyone else. Mara's hand trembled, the knife wavering between them like a compass needle seeking true north. 3 years of grief and guilt and rage had brought her to this moment, to this man too. This impossible choice? Give me one good reason not to end this right now. Kai looked directly into her eyes. For the first time since she'd walked into the store, his voice was completely steady. Because killing me won't bring Sarah back. But maybe we can save someone else. The storm outside chose that moment. To tear the power lines apart completely, emergency lights died, plunging them into absolute darkness. In that blackness, Mara heard something that made her soul freeze. The sound of a car pulling into the parking lot. The headlights cut through the darkness like twin suns, illuminating sheets of rain that fell like silver curtains. Through the store windows, Mara could see a small figure stumbling from a battered sedan. It's no bigger than a child, but moving with the desperate urgency of someone running for their life. "Help me." The voice that came with the pounding on the door was young, female, and sharp with terror. "Please, someone's following me." Kai moved past Mara in the darkness, his shoulder brushing against hers as he fumbled for the door lock. The knife was still in her hand, but suddenly it felt heavier than lead. "Don't," Mara whispered. "Be a trap, or it could be exactly what it looks like." Kai's voice carried the weight of 2 deaths and a lifetime of regret. "I won't fail another one." The door swung open, and rain swept into the store like an invasion. The girl who stumbled inside was maybe 17, with dark hair plastered to her skull and eyes wide with the kind of fear that changes you forever. Her clothes were torn, and blood trickled from a cut on her lip. "Lock the door," she gasped, spinning around to press her back against the wall. "He's coming. He's right behind me." Mara felt something cold settle in her stomach. The girl's face was familiar in a way that made her think of mirrors and photographs and the terrible symmetry of fate. "Who's coming?" Kai asked, already turning the deadbolt. "My stepfather." The girl's voice broke on the words. "He's been drinking again, and when I tried to leave, he said he'd kill me before he'd let me go." Outside, another set of headlights appeared through the rain. A pickup truck, moving too fast for the slick roads, fishtailing slightly as it pulled into the lot. "That's him." The girl pressed herself further against the wall, making herself as small as possible. "Oh God, he followed me." Mara looked from the girl to Kai, seeing her own thoughts reflected in his dark eyes. History was repeating itself with mechanical precision. Another young woman running from someone who claimed to love her. Another stormy night that felt like the edge of the world. "What's your name?" Mara asked. "Lily." The girl's eyes darted between them, taking in the knife still clutched in Mara's hand. It's a broken coffee cup on the floor, the tension that stretched between them like a wire about to snap. "Are you going to help me or not?" The truck door slammed. Outside, and heavy footsteps splashed through puddles toward the store. A man's voice, slurred with alcohol and rage, cut through the sound of the rain. "Lily, I know you're in there. Come out here right now, or I swear to Christ I'll burn this place down." Kai moved to the window, peering through the rain-streaked glass. "He's got a gun." Ara's blood froze. The knife in her hand suddenly felt like a child's toy against the weight of what was coming. Back door, leads to the cliff. Nowhere to run from there. The girl, Lily, started to cry. Not the pretty tears of movies, but the ugly, desperate sobs of someone who's realized they're trapped. "He said he'd find me wherever I went. Said he'd make sure no one else ever wanted me." Mara looked at Kai and saw her own decision reflected in his face. Whatever had brought them together, whatever sins they carried between them, none of it mattered now. There was a girl who needed saving, and they were the only ones who could do it. "Hide behind the counter," Mara told Lily. "Whatever happens, stay down." "What are you going to do?" Mara tested the weight of the knife in her hand, feeling the familiar comfort of steel and purpose. "What I should have done 3 years ago." Kai caught her arm as she moved toward the door. "Mara, wait. If we do this together, there's no going back. You understand that?" She looked down at his hand on her arm, then up into his eyes. In them, she saw Elena's ghost and Sarah's ghost and all the might-have-beens that haunted the space between heartbeats. There was never any going back. The front door exploded inward in a shower of glass and splintered wood. The man who stepped through looked like violence given human form, all beard and belly and bourbon-fueled rage. The gun in his hand was bigger than it needed to be, the kind of weapon designed to make a statement rather than a clean kill. "Where is she?" He swung the barrel toward Kai, then toward Mara, his eyes struggling to focus in the dim light. "I know she's here. I can smell her fear." Lily whimpered from behind the counter, the sound small and broken. Man's head turned toward it like a predator hearing wounded prey. "Hey, there's my girl." His voice was honey over broken glass. "Come. On out, baby. Daddy's here to take you home. She's not going anywhere with you." Mara stepped forward. the knife hidden behind her back. The man laughed, a sound like gravel in a cement mixer. "And who the hell are you, her fairy godmother? Someone who knows what you are, what I am?" He took a step closer, and Mara could smell the whiskey on his breath, the stale sweat of someone who'd lost the ability to care about anything but control. "I'm her family. I'm all she's got left in this world. You're a predator." The word hit him like a slap. His face twisted with rage, and he raised the gun toward her chest. "You don't know what you're talking about, bitch. I know you're not." The first man to mistake possession for love. Mara's voice was steady, but inside she was calculating distances, angles. The split-second timing that would mean the difference between saving Lily and joining Sarah in whatever comes after. "And I know you won't be the last." Behind the counter, she heard Lily's sharp intake of breath. From the corner of her eye, she saw Kai moving slowly along the wall, trying to get behind the gunman without being seen. "Last chance," the man said. "Give me my girl, or I start shooting." Mara smiled, and it was the smile of someone who'd already died once and learned not to fear it happening again. "Go to hell," the gun roared, muzzle flash lighting the store like lightning. Mara was already moving, the knife leaving her hand in a silver arc that caught the emergency lighting and threw it back like falling stars. The sacrifice time slowed to the rhythm of a dying heartbeat. Mara felt the bullet's heat kiss her cheek as she dove sideways, her knife spinning end over end through the air. Behind the counter, Lily screamed. The sound was pure terror distilled into noise, the kind of scream that lives in nightmares. The blade found its mark in the gunman's shoulder, and he staggered backward with a bellow of pain and rage. The gun wavered in his grip, but didn't fall. Blood spread across his shirt like spilled wine on white cloth. "You stupid bitch." Raise the weapon again, finger tightening on the trigger. "I'll kill you first, then I'll take my time with both of them." That's when Kai struck. He came from the blind spot behind the magazine rack, moving with the desperate efficiency of a man who'd already lost everything that mattered. His hands closed around the gunman's wrist, forcing the barrel toward the ceiling just as it fired. Again, plaster rained down like snow as they struggled for control. Mara rolled across the floor, coming up beside the counter where Lily crouched with her hands pressed over her ears. The girl's eyes were squeezed shut, but tears leaked from the corners like water from a cracked dam. "Stay down," Mara hissed, then looked around for another weapon. The cash register sat open, bills scattered across the floor from the struggle. Behind it, she spotted something that made her heart skip. A sawed-off shotgun mounted under the counter. Kai and the gunman crashed into a display of motor oil, bottles exploding in rainbow slicks across the linoleum. The bigger man was winning. Through sheer mass, slowly turning the pistol back toward Kai's chest. "Should have minded your own business," he grunted, spittle flying from his lips. "Should have let me take what's mine." Mara's fingers closed around the shotgun. It was loaded. She could tell from the weight, but from this angle she couldn't get a clean shot without risking hitting Kai. "She's not yours." Kai gasped, his arms shaking with the effort of holding the gun away. "She's not anyone's. She's family." The word came out like a curse. And family stays together, no matter what. The pistol's barrel inched closer to Kai's chest. Mara could see the moment when his strength would give out, could practically hear the gunshot that would end him. She had maybe 3 seconds to act. "Hey!" she shouted, standing up with the shotgun leveled at the gunman's head. "Let him go, or I'll spread your brains across 3 counties. The man looked up at her, and for a moment she saw something that might have been fear flicker in his eyes. Then he smiled, showing teeth like broken tombstones. "You won't shoot. Not with your boyfriend this close. Try me." "We did." In one fluid motion, he shoved Kai away and swung the pistol toward Lily, who was still crouched behind the counter. The movement was practiced, calculated. He'd done this before, used innocence as a shield against consequence. Drop the gun, or the girl dies. Mara felt the world narrow to a single point of choice. She could see the future branching out like a river delta. In one branch, she lowered the shotgun and watched him take Lily back into whatever hell she'd escaped from. In other, she took the shot and lived forever with the possibility that she'd missed, that her actions had caused another innocent death. In the third branch, the one that felt like destiny wearing the mask of tragedy. She made a different choice entirely. "Kai," she said softly, never taking her eyes off the gunman. "Take care of her." Before anyone could react, Mara threw herself across the space between them. She hit the gunman at waist level, driving him backward into the wall, just as his finger tightened on the trigger. The pistol fired point blank into her chest, the sound deafening in the confined space. Pain exploded through her body like liquid fire, but she held on. Her arms wrapped around the gunman's waist, pinning his gun hand against his side as they fell together. She felt ribs crack, felt something vital tear inside her chest, but she didn't let go. "Now," she gasped. Kai didn't hesitate. The shotgun blast turned the gunman's head into red mist and scattered thoughts. His body went limp against Mara, the weight of him crushing her into the floor. Silence rushed in to fill the space where violence had been. Outside, the storm continued its assault on the world. But inside the store, everything was still except for the sound of Mara's labored breathing. Kai rolled the dead man away from her, his hands shaking as he pressed them against the wound. In her chest, blood welled between his fingers, too much blood, too red, and too warm. "Why?" he whispered. "Why did you do that?" Mara's lips curved in what might have been a smile, because someone had to break the cycle. Lily appeared beside them, her face pale but determined. "We need to call an ambulance." No signal. Kai's voice was hollow. "Tower's been down since." The storm started. Mara felt something inside her chest shift and settle, like the last piece of a puzzle finding its place. Her vision was starting to blur around the edges, darkness creeping in like fog. "There's something I need to tell you," she whispered, her hand finding Kai's. "About Sarah, about why I was really running." Kai leaned closer, his ear inches from her lips. "What?" "I was driving that night too, following her, just like you followed Alina." The words came out in fragments, each one a struggle. "She found out about Mom's medical bills, about how I'd been stealing from her to pay them. She was leaving because of me." Understanding dawned in Kai's eyes like sunrise through storm clouds. "You were both running from the same guilt. And now we're both free." Outside, the storm began to break. Through the shattered windows, they could see the first pale hints of dawn touching the horizon. The darkness that had seemed so permanent was finally giving way to light. Mara's grip on Kai's hand tightened one last time, then relaxed completely. Her eyes remained open, but the storm in them had finally found peace. Lily knelt beside them, tears streaming down her face. "She saved me." Kai looked down at Mara's still form, then at the girl they'd both died a little to protect. "But she saved all of us." But as the dawn light grew stronger, revealing the full scope of what they'd done, Kai realized their trial was far from over. Because in the distance, growing louder with each passing moment, came the sound of sirens. The dawn, the sirens cut through the morning air like knives through silk, growing closer with each heartbeat. Kai looked down at Mara's body, then at the destruction surrounding them. 2 corpses, a shattered store, and a story that no one would ever believe. "We need to run." Lily's voice was steady now, shock giving way to survival instinct. "When they get here, they'll think we murdered them both." Kai shook his head, his hand still pressed against Mara's cooling chest. "She didn't die so we could spend our lives looking over our shoulders, and what do we do?" The question hung in the air like smoke from a dying fire. Outside, the storm had finally broken, leaving behind a world washed clean and gleaming with possibility. But inside the store, the wreckage of their choices spread out like a map of consequences. Kai stood slowly, his knees creaking like old wood. In the growing daylight, he looked older than his years, worn down by loss and regret and the terrible weight of surviving when others didn't. "We tell the truth, the truth."
Alb.
Lily's laugh held no humor. "Which part? The part where you stalked your girlfriend and killed 2 people? The part where Mara was planning to murder you before deciding to save me instead? Or the part where I led my stepfather right to us?" Kai studied her face, seeing something there he hadn't noticed before. "You didn't run away, did you?" Lily's composure cracked like ice in spring. "What?" The way he found you so quickly, the way you knew exactly which buttons to push to make us want to help you. Understanding bloomed in Kai's mind like a poisonous flower. You brought him here on purpose. A tear started down Lily's cheeks, but they weren't tears of grief. They were tears of relief, of a secret finally being spoken aloud. He killed my mother last year. Made it look like an accident, just like he was going to do to me. Her voice was small but steady. I've been planning this for months, looking for the right place, the right people. Somewhere isolated. Someone with their own darkness who wouldn't ask too many questions. I used us. I saved us. Lily knelt beside Mara's body, closing her eyes with gentle fingers. She understood at the end. Why do you think she threw herself at him instead of taking the shot? She knew this was the only way it could end. The sirens were close now, maybe a mile down the coastal highway. Kai felt the last pieces of his old life falling away like leaves from a dying tree. What happens now? Lily stood, brushing dust from her knees. Now we become the people we need to be. She moved to the cash register, pulling out bills that hadn't been scattered in the fight. Then she went to the gun cabinet behind the counter, taking ammunition and a clean pistol that wouldn't be tied to any deaths. The police will find 2 bodies and evidence of a struggle. They'll assume robbery gone wrong, especially with the cash missing. She tucked the gun into her waistband, covering it with her torn shirt. By the time they sort through the forensics, we'll be long gone. Where? Mexico? Maybe? Or Canada. Somewhere we can disappear completely. She looked at him with eyes that held depths he was only beginning to understand. Unless you'd rather stay here and try to explain why there are 2 dead people in your uncle's store. Kai looked one last time at Mara's face. Even in death, she looked peaceful, like someone who'd finally laid down a burden too heavy to carry. Elena's photograph watched from the wall behind the counter, and for the first time in 2 years he felt like he could breathe without the weight of her ghost pressing down on his chest. She was right, he said softly, about breaking the cycle. Then don't waste what she gave us. Lily moved toward the back door, pausing only to grab a jacket from behind the counter. 5 minutes before they get here. After that, it's too late for both of us. Kai took 1 step toward the door, then stopped. Something felt unfinished, like a song cut off in the middle of the most important note. He returned to Mara's body and knelt beside her. From his pocket he pulled out his wedding ring, the one he'd been wearing like a shackle for 2 years. He slipped it onto her finger, next to a thin silver band she wore that he'd never noticed before. "Thank you," he whispered. Then he stood and followed Lily into the gray morning light. Behind them, the store sat silent and still, holding its secrets like a confessional booth after absolution. They climbed into her car, and she started the engine without hesitation. As they pulled away from the store, Kai saw the first police car round the bend in the distance, its red and blue lights painting the dawn in colors of judgment and consequence. "Any regrets?" Lily asked, not taking her eyes off the road. Kai thought about Alina, about Mara, about all the choices that had led him to this moment, about the man he'd been and the man he was becoming. Ask me in 10 years. They drove north along the coast, 2 strangers bound together by violence and necessity and the strange alchemy that transforms survivors into family. Behind them, the lighthouse stood sentinel over the wreckage they'd left behind, its broken light no longer warning ships away from the rocks. The morning sun climbed higher, burning away the last of the storm clouds. In its light the ocean stretched endlessly. Toward the horizon, vast and empty and full of possibility, and in the ruins of the gas station, among the scattered bills and broken glass, Mara's body lay at peace for the first time in 3 years. The photograph of Elena watched over her like a guardian angel, 2 women who died for love finally, keeping each other company in the silence that comes after all stories end. The sirens grew louder, then faded again as Kai and Lily disappeared into the maze of coastal roads that led away from their old lives and toward whatever waited beyond the horizon. In the distance, seagulls called to each other across the morning air, their voices carrying messages that only they could understand. And the lighthouse, broken though it was, stood eternal against the cliff, a monument to the truth that some things endure long after the storms that created them have passed. The end.